How are you guys?
I'm doing well, man. We're excited to have you join us. We were saying that it's been a minute since we've actually had a guest on this. So it's good to have somebody back and have a fresh perspective on marketing music. And it's always good to hear from the musicians themselves. So we're going to give you a chance to introduce yourself to our audience. And yeah, we'll take it from there, man.
Sounds good. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm definitely excited to be here. My name is Anish. I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. My dad is from India. He's from Bombay. My mom is from Mauritius. They're both Sindhi, which is kind of a sub branch of Indian, a type of Indian culture. Sindh is like a part of Pakistan, India. So they came here in the 80s. My dad came to study and basically had an arranged marriage with my mom, and then had me and my sister. I have a sister that's 4 years older than me. Her name is Jazba. She's actually on a lot of my tracks.
Oh yeah.
So born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and then always had this idea that really enjoyed music and discovered it when I was in middle school, and first stumbled onto 50 Cent and Dr. Dre, Fort Minor, a lot of these old school artists, and went into high school. It's funny because I always thought I would be a doctor like my sister. Uh, and then I was like, no, I'm going to be a computer scientist like my dad. And then I was like, no, I'm going to actually go finance like my cousin. And here I am doing music. So I clearly had it figured out when I was 18. So
Just like all of us.
just like all. Um, so I actually went to MIT, and I graduated in 2016. Moved out to the Bay Area. Began pursuing music, and been doing it 5 years since. So it's funny just looking back at your old stuff, and you're like, ooh, like you cringe, and you always say, wow, like I really thought my stuff was like the best stuff out, and it's just funny to see the growth. But definitely glad to be here, and excited to kind of share more into my journey, and I'm sure we'll have some good questions over the course of this podcast. So.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, I mean, that's such an interesting story. I mean, two different things struck me as through like the music lens. Like, not often do you have a lot of musicians who have like that immigrant, coming to America story. So there's like that perspective must be like, you must have an interesting perspective on like what it means to be an American. And then like two, like, I don't know many hip hop artists that went to MIT. So like, that is pretty cool. Like, did you spend much time in or around Boston, or was it kind of like, do they have campuses all over? How was that?
Yeah, no, I think the Boston area is really unique in the sense that it's a really rich culture of, a lot of unique people, young people. I want to say there were like 60 or 70 schools within a 3 to 5 mile radius. So
Damn.
I really got to see the Boston area. I know Cambridge can be a little bubble if you kind of stay within the school, but like Harvard is down the street, Boston College, Babson College, BU, you have schools I had never heard of, and people that I never had. And like, I think the really cool part about it is the history too, just like the American Revolution. I don't think I realized that the capital was once in Boston and they moved it down to DC. So it's really cool to just kind of unravel what kind of the historical significance of Boston was. But something that also struck me about the city is it is very fast paced, and it is very like different in the sense, but it parallels like San Francisco a lot, which is where I live now, because it's not like New York. And I feel like New York is fast, and I feel like LA is really fast in some ways, but I feel like, the Boston and San Francisco are a little more tame. And so I think I prefer more of like a low key area where I can kick it into high gear if I need to, kind of like Boston. So.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, James and I, we grew up in New Hampshire. So our city, if we were to go, now I live in North Carolina. So like around here, if someone says where you're from, I just kind of say the Boston area, because
Yeah.
people think New Hampshire is like Nova Scotia. In New England, I would never say I'm from Boston, because they'd say, oh, where? And I'd say New Hampshire. They'd be like, what? But like if I'm like traveling.
Tom Brady fans or no?
Oh yeah, big Tom Brady fan. I'm rooting for him big time. I don't understand I think there is definitely a portion of Patriots fans who are bitter about it, but I think it's a minority.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things like the year after he retires, whenever that is, in 28 years from now, as soon as he's done, there's going to be like one season go by, and then he'll be a god again in New England, like top to bottom.
Yeah, totally. He's won like 6 rings, 7 rings. I've lost count.
He took the Patriots to 9 Super Bowls, and this is his 10th. But yeah, he took the Pats to 9, won 6. And I saw today that he has been in more championship games than every franchise except for like 4. 4 or 5. That's just like absolutely absurd. But James, I forget where, like you said, Anish, there are 60 schools in Boston, right? James did a year at, hang on,
right?
Suffolk.
Downtown, right next to
right downtown. Yep.
Yeah, I was
so
kind of upset you didn't name Suffolk when you went through your school.
Oh, Suffolk. You know what's funny? Suffolk and Suffolk and Northeastern.
oh, that's right. Yeah, Northeastern.
Only fact about Suffolk, and then I'm done with schools, is the shot of in the Departed when he's looking at apartment complexes and he sees one of the Capitol. That's actually Suffolk's library.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's the only good thing about Suffolk.
So, keep that in mind now that I know.
Do you remember that random cut scene in that movie for 2 seconds when he was looking out the window? Yeah, that's Suffolk.
Library.
Huge for us.
That's funny.
But before you joined us, we kind of talked about how Elliot and I are seeing more and more people copy us in the music industry. And we talked about how musicians kind of have that fight too, where you're always trying to stand out and be something different. Because if you're not something different, you're just going to be the same. We kind of gave the example of Kid Cudi. A lot of people try to sound like Kid Cudi. And
right.
I've never heard of a second Kid Cudi come out. Jack Harlow now, kind of that same type of thing's happening. I wouldn't say you have tried to mimic anyone at all in terms of your take on music. Is there a certain reason you haven't, or is this just who you are? Are you just branding yourself that way on purpose?
Oh man, this is such a good question. And I think we can talk hours about this. And I think the biggest thing for me is I think there's so many great artists out there that you could kind of take a little inspiration from each of them. And so I can give you kind of a few artists that I really look up to in terms of their styles. And then I can kind of answer the second part of that. So I would say like Jack Harlow, I really like his like flow, and I really like his the types of beats that he raps to, and the the types of that he's not like, doesn't sound like any other artist. He's not trying to be big. I think his stuff is just, you could tell it's like Kentucky, that has it all over him. Right. And then I think with Anik Khan, I don't know if you guys know him too well, but he's a Queens hip hop artist from Bangladesh, Queens hip hop artist. And I really like the idea of him using really melodic styles, but also really, really fast, catchy flows. And he kind of mixes like Jamaican, Caribbean, Indian fusion. And I really like that side of him that I mimic. And there's like another Indian artist named Raja Kumari. She's a rapper and singer, might have heard of her. And then I would say Bazanji. He's actually from North Carolina. You guys might have heard of him. He's a dentist, and he actually went to dental school. So I really relate to that story of like, you took the traditional path and you're like, no, I want to do music. And then I would say there's like one more artist that I'm trying to remember. But yeah, I would say like those are the main ones for me. Well, besides Nipsey, I would say I look up to Nipsey Hussle a lot and his kind of independent kind of mind frame. In terms of mimicking styles, the interesting part about me, I think, is I've always been kind of this person that I just like to get my hands in everything. So you might have heard one of my songs with Prophet. I think he also works with you guys, and we did a song, and I talked about the quadratic equation in that song. You might have heard some of my other music where like one of my songs talked about healing, another song talked about like beach vibes. So I feel like I produce as well, and kind of my whole mentality is that like I grew up playing soccer, basketball. Like I was in the classroom a lot. I watch Bollywood movies. I think I have so many interests that is kind of my brand of a niche. Like I almost like grab a little bit of everything that is kind of a unique collection of things, and it's almost in its own niche, so to speak. And so I don't really like to limit myself in terms of who I am, because I feel like it's much more than just music. It's more like I like to like pick. I have a Harry Potter song coming out eventually. I don't know, maybe this year, maybe next year, but I like to kind of pick different things that I enjoy, and I like to see can someone else relate to what I'm doing, what I'm saying, because I think it's not just one color of like I'm not going to make a Tootsie Slide every song, or I'm not going to make like a God's Plan. Like that's just not who I am. I'm kind of just going to make whatever comes to mind in terms of my interest, in terms of what I want to say and my emotions. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't try to go in one lane. I think I can go in lots of different lanes because I have lots of different rich experiences. Like I grew up in a Caucasian neighborhood in Denver, Colorado. I went to school in a Black and Hispanic living group called Chocolate City at MIT. So like I kind of see a lot of everything. And so like I grew up in the brown community and I love Indian music. And so I just love cultures and people and different topics of discussion. And so I don't really like to limit myself in terms of a lane. I think you guys are absolutely right. So
now you mentioned something that I was going to bring up during this talk was, I don't know what you called it, but the equation. And now I wish we had a clip of the song and we could play it like a professional radio station. But since we don't, let's give the audience, let's give them a little live version. If you don't mind. Now, James, I don't know if you've heard this, but he says something like, yo, my flow is like the equation. And then it like on beat raps like the, a squared divided by this times the square root of the. And then like, it's like on point. And I was sitting there going like, what the hell? And now I just want to like, one, I was like, that was like impressive. But in terms of like knowing what you said, yeah, I didn't know. But so that actually kind of brings me to my back end point here is, you had said something about like, yeah, I try to like rap or make a song about what's coming to my mind and in my story and see if, who relates to it. Yeah. In a way, you have a very unique story and, there's not a lot of people who can go to MIT or like, the top 1% of the school they're trying to go to. So do you find instead that it's actually harder to find people who like really relate to it? And like, does that lead you to say, instead of trying to get you to relate to it, I want you to say, that's cool and like look up to it?
Yeah. It's a really good question because I think sometimes it's easier to say like, these are what the trends are saying. So I should just do what the trends are saying because they're working. And I think it's much harder to say like, what do I actually want to say? Even if I don't think it's going to like, kind of the E40 idea of like his albums were kind of like 7 or 8 of them didn't hit. And then like I think the 9th or 10th one hit sort of thing, right? Where we're like kind of took time. And so I've kind of had this like interesting kind of perspective of, I've always been involved in leadership since high school. I was class president for high school and college. And one thing that always kind of stood out to me was, just kind of trying to listen and understand what people like and, what ticks with people. And I think for me, I always kind of try to draw from like different experiences and say like with the math equation that I did, I was like, I want to kind of show a clever way where I can like show a piece of myself in my music, but I can also make it relatable to the people that do know. And I feel like it's something like kind of Logic would do. It's like kind of Logic inspired, very nerdy, so to speak. But I also feel like the line in that song too was like alluding to how quadratic equations have like imaginary and real numbers. And it's like kind of to say like I weed out real people from people that I feel like, don't match my vibe. So I think there are very specific topics you can use sometimes. And you can kind of generalize those to say like, what is the point I'm trying to make here and who specifically could relate to this? Because I'm sure you guys realize like there's like that one line in that song. They're like, whoa, just because of this one line in the song, I'm going to listen to this again. So like, that's kind of like what I aim for. Is like, what is this kind of one line where like it'll capture this type of audience and it'll kind of tell that story? Because I feel like there's kind of that story that's missing sometimes in music is maybe it's the math kid or maybe it's the kid that went to MIT, the kid that is a Slytherin, a Pisces like me, or maybe there's an Indian immigrant, from Denver, Colorado with the parents who had the arranged marriage, So there's just like, whatever it may be, I just try to tell my story in the way that I can. But I also got to make sure like the music is not just for me. I want people to feel good when it's for them. I always got to keep that in mind because as the artist, it's a constant balance of like, I want to share my story, but I want to make sure like people can understand and really feel it,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think one thing before James jumps in, like, I don't think it's interesting because I don't think people necessarily need to relate to the music to be a fan of it.
Yeah.
My meaning, like, I was a big fan of 50 Cent when I was like in middle school. Like, did I relate to any of that music? No. I was like, I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. I didn't know what a gat was or like anything. And I was 12 years old or whatever, but I really liked the music. So I think when you can relate to it, it helps you connect to it even more. But I think some of the, at least in hip hop in particular, some of the reason that it became so popular is because it kind of shined a light on things that you weren't relatable to. Like, when I heard Illmatic, I wasn't like, holy shit, this looks like my growing up, but I just like respected the craft. And then like, it was almost like interesting to me to just get a glimpse into like his perspective, his life. So like, as a listener, I don't need to be like, oh, well, I went to MIT, so I get it. But like, it's like just it's almost in a way better because like, oh, wow, I've never thought of this before, this perspective. So like, it's interesting.
I was just going to say, Elliot used to do
sorry
the
to
same
cut
thing
So
with
it's
his
a
music.
quadratic
He'd have one
equation now,
good
right?
line
I didn't
and
know
that
that.
was
No.
it. Oh.
yeah, I still don't know what it is.
No, but you're absolutely right. It's a great point. I was like, oh wow, like I was missing all of this before, and now I see it, and now I hear it, and now I go do more research digging.
Right. Okay. I didn't even know this was a thing. And like, oh shit, that's what's
Right.
going on in New York City.
Right. So, yeah.
Like, I was really hoping that line would just be good enough. I was
Right. To
thinking I
carry the
could
rest
say
of
it.
the
Right. What if I say this same line 9 more times?
the hook.
Right. Then you got a Tyga song.
Right. Right. With 3 lines, and it becomes a top 5 hit.
Exactly. Right. Right. Well, okay. So, I mean, that was a great take on like, how you got to where you're at, both in your life and musically. So now one of the reasons we thought you would be a great guest on here is because whenever we have our consultation calls, like for those who don't know, like when we work with clients, we want to have as much of a hands-on like approach as we can. So we want to have that consultation call with our clients to like actually go over the results and the data and make sure everyone's speaking the same language. But two, the fun for us is setting up the plan and like figuring out, okay, you want to do this. The results are saying that. How do we put these two together to like become the most effective that we think we can? And when we do those calls, you always have great questions. So now I'm hoping that you came prepared with a couple of questions that we can kind of dive right into.
I did.
Hell yeah.
Okay. So okay, I'm curious. So COVID happens, right? COVID happens, and the music industry and really everything kind of just it's at a standstill. It's like, okay, now what, right? So I know like live shows are a large part of the musician, right? And streaming is what it is. You can make a career out of it if you're really big or if you're really good at it. I know it's not like something a lot of independent artists kind of, at least at the start, make a career from. They can get there. So a lot of merch, a lot of shows, these kinds of things. I'm so curious on your takes in terms of, okay, once kind of this pandemic comes at a standstill, once everyone gets their vaccines, once things start to kind of reopen, how do you see the landscape of live shows changing, especially like within Twitch, within, IG Live, I guess other mediums of kind of performing live? Do you see that a lot of these, like, I mean, I think a concert's a concert and live is live, but I'm curious, like, how the live show will kind of change and how the like digital era will kind of couple with the live shows and what kind of experience can be created after kind of COVID. Yeah. So that's kind of my question. I would love to hear your thoughts.
I think at first, what we're going to see happen is there's going to be more competition for touring than ever before because everyone's going to try to make up all the time they've lost. If you think about it, we probably got 2 years worth of touring that people are all going to want to tour because that's a bunch of money they're leaving on the table. And then in addition to that, we're now in a spot where people have formed audiences that they didn't have before, like you were saying, through Twitch or YouTube and stuff like that. So that's even more people who now are able to tour. Because of this, my guess is what I'll call it, will be at the beginning these tours are going to be almost mega tours. It's not going to be an opener and a main act. It's going to be 4 openers and 2 major acts who are all signed on the same label, because the label can just pump money into it, get it all done, and get taken care of. And when those people who are those major ones are touring, what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot more vlogs of the touring. We're going to see someone will be probably on the stage live streaming it online, where you can pay. If you couldn't go to the concert, here you go, you got it here now. Because not everyone's going to have the vaccine. And there's also going to be people who are immune compromised and stuff like that, who just can't get the vaccine, or they can't go until they are 100% confident everyone else there has it. So it's going to be a combination, I think, of a lot of things. But I think the biggest moneymaker for these labels is going to be, okay, let's partner up Jack Harlow with Lil Wayne and Drake, and let's get them out there and give me 4 people who are up and coming now, who now have audiences that didn't have audiences before the pandemic, who are now big on Twitch and YouTube or wherever they're at. Because or maybe someone became big just on streaming. If you can add those 4 as openers, now instead of charging $150 a ticket, you can charge $400, $500, maybe $600 for just a ticket, because you've got so much more to offer. It will also speed up the labels getting the artist to perform, and it gets the artist in a tough spot. Artists need to put out music to fulfill their contracts. And if they haven't toured with their old music, they're trying to get that done as fast as possible so they can put out new music. And if they don't get it out within the contract year, usually you're giving them an album every 6 to 8 months. If you're not performing each one, all you're doing is pushing back your contract. So the artists are also going to be going, get us out there. We want more money. We can get more money if you release new music, but you're not going to release new music until I tour and perform this old music. So it's not just going to be the labels who are motivated. The artists are going to be motivated to get this done. It's going to be on the labels to find out creative ways to include it. That's why I'm thinking like they'll have someone with a camera live streaming it online. They'll find different ways to kind of get you interacting with it. I wouldn't be surprised if someone does a tour and there's a live vote or a poll someplace that they pick the next song. And then that way they feel like they're included and they can watch it online, and they can do ad spaces and stuff like that behind the stage now, because you've got digital media. You're pretty much going to turn into a sporting event, but for music. And it hasn't been done yet.
Well, I think, yeah, there's that angle. But let's not forget about the consumers. That's all assuming that everyone is amped up, ready to go to an arena with 60,000 people, right? I do not think that that's going to be the case. I think at first you're going to see a bunch of big shows, but I mean, look at this rollout. We have half of the country, if not more, concerned about the vaccine, period. So this is kind of getting away from music, but on a macro level, like, I think there's going to be a lot of people itching to get back to these things. But then you think of the logistics of it. Okay, how are we going to make sure all of these people have their vaccines? How are we going to figure that out? Right? There's that. And like, so what, are we going to just have a big ass festival with 100,000 people there for 4 days? Like, maybe, but I don't know how quickly those tickets will sell out. I think at first you think, no, people are itching. Like, yes, sure. But then like, there's also a lot of people who are not eager to go hang out with a bunch of people. Maybe their mom is sick, maybe whatever. Maybe they're just scared. They don't want to get COVID. They don't want to risk it. There's a lot of people who are unsure. There's that side of things. So then let's say, okay, hypothetically, everybody or enough people get their vaccine. Like, that's going to take a long time. Like, let's look at what's happening right now. I have a really close friend in a big agency in New York City, and they do big tours. You know, Kevin Hart is one of their clients, you know, big bands, John Legend. And she was telling me that all of those companies or agencies, they've already pushed the concerts. They're not planning tours this year. It's all 2022. So I think, because think of the logistics of moving 5 big acts, all their equipment, everything, even to go. So we're going to do Boston to New York City to DC, and that's it. Think of all the work that goes into that, though. If one of those dates gets postponed, because who knows what's going to happen, poof, money gone. So there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. And I think when it actually does get to the point where, okay, 2022, everyone's vaccinated, everyone feels good about, and everyone's excited to get back into touring, then it's going to be, there are only so many venues and there are only so many things. So the top dogs are going to eat first. So those people in the middle, like the up and coming artists, might actually even have an easier job than, say, people who are close to being really big, because they're fine playing a bar or a club with 150 people because they're just pumped to have any sort of gig. But the people who are aiming for those big venues are going to be taken by the top dogs who haven't toured in 2 years. So it's going to be this weird survival of the fittest, I think, in terms of like, well, which big artist is willing to take the least, or who knows? But I think it's going to be very interesting, because as much as we can't lose sight of the general people who will be paying for this stuff and how they're feeling about it. And I don't think anybody knows when it's going to be fully back to normal. Yeah. Especially you start thinking about like an arena show, you know, like it's not an open air festival. There's just so many questions, man. And so actually the same person I know who was telling me, she was like, so right now, if you're a medium level comedian, you can still do a special, right? You only need 25 people in a room, get some people laughing. You can kind of make a successful show because it's mostly for the camera anyway. You know, how many musicians are going to be pumped to go play a show for 37 people and to stream it? Music is a little bit different. People will stream it, sure, but I'm not going to pay a concert price to stream a show. Maybe I'll pay $5 once or twice to support my favorite artists, but I'm not going to do it 27 times this summer.
No.
You know, maybe if Eminem did it, I'd be like, sweet, I'll watch that. But kind of anybody other than my absolute favorite artists, I'm not going to go to Twitch. What is Twitch? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I know what it is, but like I don't use that. Like it's for streaming video games and like performances and shit, right? But like, I don't use it. So like, the thing is like all of this adjustment, everyone is going to be going through it at once. And eventually it's going to come down to kind of like any other form of advertising. You know, there's limited space, there's limited attention. So who can pay the most to get it? And the people, you know, Drake, Justin Timberlake, Ed Sheeran, they're going to be touring. Justin Bieber, Beyonce, Katy Perry, like in kind of anybody outside of that level one, it's going to be tough for them to get big shows, or maybe they can do a show here and there, but a tour of, hey, I'm putting together 42 shows. That's going to be tough to do because there's only so many places worth booking for those people. And they're going to be very, very competitive. There are only so many weekends at a venue every year, you know, you gotta, especially the big arenas, you got to plan around basketball, hockey, all this other shit. So it's going to be really tough to get back to totally normal. I don't think it's going to get back to totally normal until like the year after tours, 2022. If those are the first big tours, there are going to be a lot of people who say, I'm going to wait and see how this goes before I spend my $600 on the big tour or the big show that James is talking about. Even if I'm pumped about it, those are awesome artists. Before I shell out $600 and another $200 for the hotel and $150 for the flight to get there or whatever, I'm going to see that they know what they're doing and that everyone's money doesn't disappear. So I think there's going to be a little while before it's like back to consistent system of, okay, cool, no worries about it. I'll book that show for September. It's January now, but okay, my favorite artist is coming to my city in September. I'll book it now because I'm not uncertain that it will actually happen.
Here's my gentle reminder. Florida never shut down.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Florida has concerts in Miami still every weekend. So, yeah, you can tell it's also, I mean, that's going to be part of it too, is who are the people, where are they from, where are they used to? If Daddy Yankee wants to do a show in Miami, he's probably just going to do a show this weekend because COVID's not a thing down there.
Daddy Yankee. Rumpe. But so, Anish, that was a really long answer, but I mean, that's what this show is for. I think did that answer your question?
Yeah. In fact, I'm gonna listen to this again when this comes out. I think that was such a good answer. There was so many really big nuggets in there, so I definitely appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
I think this is a really good question to ask you guys now. So, and I think you guys do a great job of it. In fact, I think you do the best job of that out of all the agencies and playlisting services and whatever, et cetera, I've worked with. I think there's always the idea of take, right? And I think you guys are a give mentality, right? How can I give value? How can I add value? And I think you said it in one of your podcasts or one of your episodes of like, our goal is to get the artist to basically to blossom, right? Where they can fly and they don't kind of need these training wheels. And you guys are kind of there to get them off the ground, right? And that's like a very give first mentality. And so I wanted to ask you guys, like, and this is more of like purpose, right? So like, how do you guys feel like, where do you get your motivation and your purpose to kind of to give first, right? Because I think you differentiate yourselves really well just in terms of, first of all, being two faces. I think it's a lot of black boxes out there where it's like I'm paying and I don't know where my money's going or who it's going to and how they're going to help me. You guys are very like, sit down, create a customized plan, really think about what the artist needs rather than what we can just throw at them in terms of like, I'm sure you guys could say like, we could throw these 4 or 5 playlisting things or whatever, et cetera. But it's like, where are you right now in your career? What do you need? How can we help? Like what incentivizes you, kind of what motivates you to come from that give first mentality? And why don't you think that, and obviously we're humans and we're all selfish to an extent, but like, why do you think a lot of other like places are not having this give first mentality? Do you think it's the nature of the industry? Do you think it's just that like people are just in it for themselves? Or do you think that the business model is just changing so much that you kind of have to give value before you do anything else these days? So.
Yes, I'll answer the second part first. The reason other people don't do it is because all they care about is the money. And they think if they can get money now, that's it. They don't care, like just get you in, get as much as they can from you. Because what they're prepared for is you not to talk to them ever again. Every company out there business school teaches you that the returning client is always cheaper. If anyone's watched The Office, they've heard the scene where Ryan asked Michael Scott if it's cheaper to get a new client or a returning client. A returning client's always cheaper. These businesses know that they're not going to have returning clients because most of them are scams. If they're not scams, they actually don't care about you at all. They just, buy as much as you can from us. If it doesn't work, buy more. Without caring what your goals are or anything, or even how much you want to do. Elliot and I have established ourselves as we will never hesitate to tell you to do nothing. You don't always have to spend money. Like we are the first ones to tell you, like you can do XYZ, just go run Facebook ads. You don't need to. We didn't offer Facebook ads until 2 weeks ago because we felt like people can do it on their own for cheaper. Period. Why pay someone to do it? Now we offer it because we know there's people who just don't want to do it themselves. But ultimately, everything we do is to educate, because if we can show you that we know what we're talking about and you agree to a certain extent, it builds the trust and we start to get we can talk. But if we talk and it's not working, it's not going to work. And we'd rather find out before you buy. If you don't like anything we're saying, don't work with us. We're obviously not going to work in the long run. So I think that's part of it. I'm sure Elliot has way more to add because he always does.
Well, that would be correct. I'm a big Gary Vee guy.
I am.
And one, we thought we had information and insight to give, period. And I think we do. I think a lot of people, even if they want to give insight or information, it's all generic, abstract bullshit. Oh, you got to work harder. The music's got to be good. It's not actual. It's kind of like bullshit life coach. Well, you just got to find the right fans. Well, no shit. How? Well, you just got to really hope that one of those songs hits the Billboard charts. Oh, no. Wow. I wouldn't have guessed. How do we do it? Oh, well, I don't know. So, okay. So like one, I think a lot of people, even if they want to give, they're saying what they think they should be saying. We're saying what we know we do our thing a very particular way because we have gone through. James has the interesting perspective of being an entertainment attorney, of like how to protect your client, right? I was a musician for a while, and like I never did anything super big in music, but like I built my own little home studio and mastered my own stuff, hundreds of songs. Like I got to the point where like we had a couple 100,000 hits on, YouTube and Spotify, and like, we were making a couple grand every other month or whatever back in the day. And we were like, for like being 20 years old, like 20 years old, that was pretty good for like a little side hustle. Then I got to the point where like we realized, hey, instead of investing more in our own home studio and doing this entirely on our own, we should take this to the next level and go to like a professional who knows what they're doing. So then we went to a really, really nice studio and worked with one of the best engineers, like literally in the industry. His name's Aaron Mattis. He did a podcast with us. If you listen to that, he mixes for like NLE Choppa now. And he's done like ASAP Rocky and like a bunch of other good records. But I say that to say only that even though like I never made the Billboard charts or anything, but like I know the process of doing absolutely nothing or knowing absolutely nothing, like going through it completely on my own with like my friend, building a little studio, learning GarageBand and Pro Tools like on my own and YouTube, and then making it to like a really nice studio, doing like 20 or 30 songs in there, like putting together an album, and then like hustling to get like 40 or 50 shows ish, like on my own. And like none of them were for 20,000 people, but like I know the process of, hey, I've got this album. How do I market it? How do I book a show? How do I make some sort of money? Mm-hmm. And along the way, I made a lot of mistakes in hindsight, but I didn't know, there was nobody telling me. I didn't know where to go for help because I was up in New Hampshire. Who the hell was I going to ask how to make it in the hip hop game? No one up there had to, who knew, it's like, so it's all just trial and error. And like, now we know the reason we say the things we say is because in hindsight, there are so many things that I'm like, I should have done it this way. And it's like, I don't think I'd be Jack Harlow right now, but like I don't know, maybe I would have played 60 shows instead of 40. Who knows? But just little incremental change along the way would have made a difference. But now I know, and I'm old, I'm almost 30, and I'm like washed up, and I don't do that. Like I still love making music, but in terms of like me chasing it as like my career and like trying to perform, and I think those days are like over with. I know they are. So like, I kind of turned my perspective while working with James. He was my manager. He was my attorney. That's how we started working together. And he kind of opened my eyes just to like the perspective of, hey, this is a business and there's a lot of things we can do with a business entity, like, tax wise, legally, things that I was not even thinking about. So like, then I kind of got that perspective. I'm like, oh, this really is a music business, just like the same. If I was selling hoodies, I would have been keeping track of my expenses and like where I was driving to get them and how much, all these things that for some reason, when I was making music, I wasn't thinking about because it's more, music is so abstract. So we give insight because we genuinely want to help, and two, we have it. And like nowadays, like there's so much junk, especially in the music marketing space, where even if people give good knowledge, it's for 20 seconds. And then they say, oh, learn more on my YouTube channel. Like, oh, dude, I'm not going to your YouTube channel. Like you found me here now, just give me the information now.
Right.
What we focus on is the audience of our audience. If we make some sort of, if this is an interesting conversation and you find it, when we post it on Instagram, my guess is you probably know 3 or 4 or 10 other musicians, right? So if we make some good point about, hey, this is what you could do with your music, and you say, that's a good point, you're going to share it to your friend. And now, because we're not saying, hey, buy this for 10% off today and and you got to fake it till you make it. No, you just need to, all this bullshit. It's actual something where it makes you think and go, I didn't think of it that way. Maybe we could do this. And if you share it to your friend because it's actually meaningful and it's not something that's going to make you look like an idiot, and now you share the audience of our audience is who we're going after. If you check out our page, like nowhere in there is there any content of us saying buy now, buy today, like 10% off. Never, not once. Because that's not, yeah.
What we've learned, and I'm sure you've learned to this point, is no one in the industry is doing what we do. If they do, they always cut it short, like you were saying, Elliot, or they're giving very broad, generic, like the most popular people in music that I've been like, people have reached out to me like, hey, this guy wants you on his podcast. And I look at his page. I'm like, all he's doing is going, you need to release more music. Pay me and I'll tell you why. Just tell me why. If I believe you and you actually know what you're doing, I'll pay you to tell me how to do it. But if you're just giving me broad examples, if you say that and then 2 weeks later before that, you said, promote what you already have out, pick one. You can't just say terms. It's when people post like inspirational quotes all the time. That's pretty much what the music industry was before we started to do. And, or the damn guy who stands in front of his platinum plaques, Taylor Swift's ex-manager for a reason, I'm sure. I don't know why, but there's a reason he's not the manager anymore. And what he does is the same thing. He'll start to talk about, hey, the music industry is a bunch of scams. Don't sign a demo deal. Pay me $99 and you'll learn more in my class. So just tell me why. And it's sad that musicians have to go through it, but it's even what made me more mad is I had to go through it in law school. I paid to take entertainment law classes, and the professor came in, handed me a book. I actually have it right over here. All you need to know about the music business. And he goes, read this, and each week we're going to go over a chapter, and that's your exam. So even he didn't know. He wasn't a real entertainment lawyer. And I've learned as I go, and I get contracts given to me. I'm like, you guys are getting screwed. Like, artists don't know what's good and bad because they've kept it secret. The whole music industry thrives on secrets. And that's literally what we knew and we learned, and we might as well bring some to light. So then there's things like United Masters and the right of first refusal. And I post that video, and then all of a sudden, De Novo and me and Elliot get banned from Instagram for 6 months. I wonder why. And they don't want this information coming out. And we have it. So there's the people who don't know any of it. And then there's people like us who know it, who try to sell it. And then there's us just going, here it is. Because how much are we really going to make if we charged everyone $10 to watch every video we post? Like, why? We wouldn't
have an audience in the first place.
Yeah, no one.
Gary Vee, right, is like, give value first. Don't worry about
value first. Exactly. Especially you got to cut through the noise. And how do we do it? By actually giving value, not some fake it till you make it, or, you know, some just, and like, don't get me wrong. It's like, I get it. It's Instagram, it's social media. You need content. I get it. But like, just, you ask, give me a specific actionable task on how it can grow my audience or my business. And they can't. It's all like, well, you got to find your fans. Okay. How? Well, you need a good song. How do I do that? Well,
release more music.
Right. Well, copy him. And it's like, no, I don't want to copy him. How do I do it? And I don't know. And it's
it always gets to the point of pay me to find out more.
Yeah.
Right.
And like,
why
the thing
would you
is,
pay?
my thing is, if you're trying to help and you don't like, and you're genuinely trying to help, I don't have a problem with it. It's the people that know they can't help and they're trying to make it look like they can, or they are, because they like have either some bots or they have a couple playlists that work, and then it's like, if that's all you have, then just say it. Like, and there's so much, like, it's social media, right? So everyone can have an opinion, and it's just, there's so much bullshit going around. And as soon as you like scratch off that top layer of, well, you need to release more music. How often? More. You need a good budget. You need a consistent budget. Well, how much? Well, I don't know.
How much do you have?
Like, right. How much can you give me? Right. Exactly. And I don't know. I mean, I think the thing is, the honest truth is, we're this way because we knew it would work, which then benefits our business. So yes, we want to help. And yes, we have insight that we think is valuable, but we also know that this strategy is what's best for our business. So like, it's a win-win. That's why we do it. And I think the other people, they want a win, not a win-win. And we're very much in the business of how do we get people to do business with us 3 times? Because we know our programs are not the most affordable programs in the world. So if we're going to sell $1,000 campaign for a 2-month thing, like, it better work, and we better have some good information to make it worth their while.
Right.
And these scammy companies, or the ones that don't perform that well, they're after, how do I get your money once? And then they just go the numbers game. Okay, if I make $7 every time, but I get 10,000 people to buy my cheap little thing before it all gets shut down, cool, I made a bunch of money.
And that's kind of when you see like the email list. Like, here's a list of emails, and then they give you like the contact email for CNN. It's like, why am I paying like
a bunch of contact at?
It's $9. So then they get 1,000 people to do it. Sweet, just made $9,000 pretty simply, and it's such a low price point. No one's going to complain. Or if they do, I'm just going to go, that sucks, because I don't have reviews. If you look up these companies, most of them refuse to be reviewed on Google, and I think that's one of the biggest signs to me. If you search their name, they won't get a knowledge box. They don't want people talking about who they like have worked together. They want to keep it quiet and just keep getting money. And when you search reviews, you see a bunch of bad comments on Reddit, but you can't find them every place else. And it's funny to go to Reddit and look at them. And really, I mean, I'm sure we have thousands of people we talk to every month that have never worked with us, just consistently messaging us and asking for info, or I'm answering questions on my Instagram. I'll get people all the time. And my biggest thing at this point has been when I posted a thing like, hey, ask me a question. When people DM me a question, I'll either ignore it or I'll tell them, ask me the question so everyone can get the answer. I'm not here for personalized information to be your manager. I think it's helped us. Like Elliot said, we did this. We knew what we were doing going into it. Elliot pitched me on this whole Gary Vee model. I agreed with him because we were kind of doing it anyway. Like, I was doing it as a manager for artists. Like, why not just make it a bigger scale? And now here we are, and I still talk to Elliot.
Believe it or not. Yeah, people say, what do you do at De Novo? And I'm like, I'm kind of the idea guy. They're like, well, who does the work? I'm like, that would be James. How do you sell it? I do the selling. I can sell it. I can market it. I don't want to do any of the work up until that point or after. But I think I really understand the audience, because me 5 years ago is our customer.
Yeah. Right.
A musician, like, I know exactly what we're looking for. I know exactly every question. When we set this up, I was like, we need to make sure we have questions. We have these questions answered. Boom, 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 boom. And sure enough, maybe we added like 2 more to that list that I forgot about. I know the audience because it's me. It's me a few years ago. What would have helped me a few years ago? That would have been a nice tip. Now that I have more experience and I know James and I'm doing this every day. So I'm just like, I'm in a way talking to my younger self, and people are like, it resonates with them because I, to some degree, know what you're going through.
And that's a good point, is like the ego. I think the ego can get in the way a lot with things. Of just like a lot of artists, I'm not going to say like I've been through it, I've been there. We all kind of go through this phase of like, no, I know what I'm doing, like blah, blah, blah. But then you realize there's so much information. There's so many people out there that know more than you. And when you humble down and you say, okay, I don't know shit, and I need your help, and I will do whatever it takes, and I will work hard. I think, when you put your head down and you see like, and I completely agree with you guys. I think half of it is the mentality, right? I think if you have a good mentality, and if you have like the right kind of frame of mind and directionality, that's half the battle. And I think if more people saw that and were like, let me give more value, let me like work with people, let me build bridges, let me have a long-term relationship, let me see how I can help. I think that's like the right way to go about it. And you guys are completely right. I think because of the nature of just a lot of people wanting theirs and then jumping ship, it's just created this kind of like schism of like, there's like the Novos, and then there's basically like everybody else, right?
Yeah. So. And I'll end it on this, that I think at least our goal is to always give a different perspective. You don't have to agree with it, but if it gets you thinking about what you've been doing, we've helped. You may never want to give us credit, not you personally, but like there's many artists out there, I'm sure, who's like, they're right.
Like you said,
That is, we're happy with that. Yes, we've had people follow up later on and go, hey, I never used your services, but I did this and it worked. Thank you. Cool. Great. Glad to hear that. Maybe you can hire Elliot as a manager later. He'll be a blast.
Yeah. And I'm just like, told you. I'm like, wow, how'd you know that? Oh, well, because I did it before. It's funny how that shit works.
Right.
But yeah, man. So where can people find you? Obviously, you're on Spotify. You've got some music videos. You got a website. You got some merchandise coming out. Where can our audience check you out? Because they definitely, I think, are going to want to learn more about. You've got a really interesting story. And actually, and don't think I'm letting you skate on out of here without wrapping that equation.
I'm gonna definitely do that.
So yeah, okay.
I'm gonna definitely do that. So I guess I'll kind of end with this kind of like, before I do that, I'll just say, first of all, just thank you to everyone tuning in. Thank you, James and Elliot, both of you guys, for giving me this opportunity, for being, great partners. I point everybody to you guys because you're the best and you do it the best. And I can't wait to work with you guys and see what else we can build together and see who else I can refer to you guys. And everyone watching this, if you want to take your music career to the next level and are serious about it, invest in Novo and SoundCloud. So I'll say that first. The second thing is concerning where to find me. I guess I wanted to add this before I even get into that is another thing about my music that's a little bit different is I don't usually cuss or swear a lot because I have a little cousin in Chicago and I have, other people that listen to my music that are, younger audience. And I want to make sure that they have that kind of ability to listen and have that, a kind of openness to a wider audience. And that's just not me. So that's something about me for people who haven't heard my music. I am on all the distribution platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. Anish, it's capital A apostrophe Niche. It's kind of a play on my real name, Anish, Anish. I do have a website. It's anishmusic.com, ANICHEMUSIC.com. I do have merch coming.
There it is.
Soon.
Fresh. That's a good color.
Thank you. I'm a Slytherin, so I wanted to do the green, for Harry Potter fans out there. But so more music coming this year, merch coming soon. What else did I want to say? I guess I wanted to thank you guys. I wanted to thank my team. Wanted to thank my manager, Timothy Gann, who's believed in me from the onset, from the get-go. Wanted to thank Dante Fontaine. I know I haven't spoken to you in a while, but he's the reason that I met Tim. He was my Uber driver, crazy enough, and I met Tim through him one day when I was working in FinTech out here in the Bay. So Dante Fontaine, Timothy Gann, who's believed in me since day one. Want to thank my boys, Yusuf, Elliot, and just my family, my cousins, it sounds like I'm accepting a Grammy. Grammy award.
I love lawyer, it. Keep it going. I'm
gonna keep it going. My lawyer, Mark, my boy Jorge, Different First Studios engineer, one of the best in the world. He's gotten me so far. Like you said, you work with a professional, and it takes your music to the next level. Who else do I want to thank? I want to thank all of my friends and my family who supported me from day one. My cousins. I can't wait to accept this Grammy. No, but in all seriousness, no, I know I wouldn't be where I am without everyone supporting me. So I just wanted to say that before I end it here, and then I guess I owe you guys a verse. So
yeah, we got to hear. I just at least want that. I want the bars about the equation.
Okay, let me give you the whole verse then.
All right. Hell
yeah. Sixth grade, remember the name. Taking math at the high school, 50 Cent on my iTunes. Verses on the papers, they would crumple and tear. From corporate ambiance to the rumbles and scares. Take a basic math equation, deriving the roots. Minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. The details of my methods know the real from the fake. So that's it.
Damn, look at that. That's the only time. That's the only guy that can rap that equation like that. and definitely the only rapper that would understand the equation.
I would say like Mac Miller and like Logic have probably done that, but I know they've done supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but I don't know about that one. So figured I'd take that one first.
That's right. Now I could make a joke and pretend it'd be funny if I was like, oh, well, that must be for the Harry Potter fans, the super caliph. No. Well, Anish, man, thank you so much for the time. It's been great having you. You always ask some great questions. So everyone who's listening, check him out on Spotify and check out some of his merch at anishmusic.com. Anish, we'll talk to you later, my man.
Thank you guys, Elliot and James. As always, it's a pleasure.
Take care.
Bye.